Good morning, everyone. Quick morning update, couple of news bits here for you. Let's get right into it. No further ado, we'll take another sip of the Joe and we'll move right into a couple of news blurbs from this morning. Enjoy.
It has now become evident, now more than ever, that in America we have a two-tier justice system in this country. You, the American people, you are being fed garbage, lies, half-truths on a daily basis. You are being betrayed by these institutions that are supposed to protect you and be honorable, and in the case of the Justice Department, carry out the rule of law. You should be disgusted. I am. There are real crimes with real evidence of real collusion that is being ignored by the media, Robert Mueller, and even at this point, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. For example, an investigation needs to be opened into this unmasking and leaking intelligence scandal. Why was Samantha Powers, the UN representative, unmasking all the names of these people leading up to the election, nearly one a day? Well, was it politically motivated? Seems to me like it's a very good possibility. Was she weaponizing intelligence in an election year to go after an opposition candidate? And then you have former Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice. And according to other reports, she also was responsible for rampant unmasking requests in 2016, including the identities of multiple Trump officials, senior officials. And then you got Ben Rhodes, close former aide to President Obama. And according to more reports, the House Intelligence Committee is looking into his requests for unmasking Americans. And, of course, you want real crimes? Look at the Clintons. Hillary actually committed felonies, real crimes, and was directly involved in serious scandals. Where are these investigations? Like when she and her aides, they destroyed State Department emails. That would be a crime. They were subpoenaed at the time, then acid washed and bleach bit the servers, and then cell phones smashed with hammers. That sounds like obstruction. Don't forget, she signed off. You want a Russia collusion story? On a deal that gave up to 20% of America's uranium to a Russian company that donated up to $145 million to the Clinton Foundation, the people involved in that deal? Anyone hear the word bribery, pay to play? And who can forget the time Bill Clinton secretly meets with the Attorney General at the time, Loretta Lynch, on an airport tarmac, only days before the FBI's conclusion of its investigation into Hillary Clinton's server? Why isn't that being investigated? Where is the outrage in the media in this country? What about the investigation into the DNC server hack? And why didn't the DNC, why wouldn't they hand over their computers that got hacked to the FBI? And why did the FBI let them get away with it? And according to Comey's testimony, the Bureau was only given access to forensic forms because the DNC would rather hire other people. And speaking of DNC emails, if you're so concerned about Russia collusion, and you want the truth, why haven't you reached out to Julian Assange of WikiLeaks? He knows where it came from, and he says it wasn't Russia. And he told me back in January it was not a state party as the source in the email hack. They're not speaking to Julian Assange. And speaking of Mueller, what about his conflicts of interest? 8 of the 16 members on Mueller's team make political donations to Obama, Clinton, and Democrats. And that's only the start of it. Mueller, Comey, best friends, and as Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett continues to point out, that relationship could be a violation of 2 laws. And you have Comey. He may have broken the law, drafting memos on government computers, removing those documents from the FBI. Comey admitted under oath that he has his friend leaked the contents of the memos to the New York Times in the hopes that a special counsel would be appointed, and it was. And we can't forget about Comey testifying that Loretta Lynch pressured him to call the investigation a matter, and he took the talking points as his own. Where's the investigation into possible Ukrainian election interference? Politico reports back in January, Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. Kiev officials scrambling to make amends with President-elect after quietly working to boost Clinton. Wow.
Well said, Mr. Hannity. Yeah, I'm just noticing that there was a graphic played in that video that showed the DNC logo. Looks an awful lot like the Comedy Central logo. Wonder what the chances are that the same person designed it. Maybe one of the Irwan brothers. Wait, did I say that out loud? Anyways, North Korea in the news again. There's a defector from North Korea says to take Kim Jong-un's threats seriously. This is breaking news.
Tough talk coming from Kim Jong-un, and we got a rare insider warning to take them seriously. The North Korean leader also branded President Trump a rogue and a gangster, his foreign minister threatening that bomb blast. None of this surprising to 28-year-old Kim Yum-young. The young man told us that he defected from North Korea 2 years ago via the South Korean embassy in Beijing on a business trip from Pyongyang. He told us he grew disillusioned with the young leader. He said the U.S. should be careful, too. Take a listen.
He's very dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Yes.
Why?
Very dangerous. He is smarter and stronger than you think. He wants to live longer. Yeah. Yes. With all the power and all the authority.
Kim Jong-un wants to live long with power and authority, maybe an argument against what experts say would be a suicidal H-bomb blast, Leland.
Yeah, a lot to break down there, even in that very short sentence. What does this defector say about these new sanctions from the United States? Will that only entrench Kim Jong-un and embolden him, or perhaps does that bring him to the table?
Well, according to our defector, Leland, dealing with the money flows into the North Korean regime, absolutely crucial. Fueling the regime's missile and nuclear programs, business abroad and hard cash brought in. Defector Kim claims that he worked in the trade and the currency departments of that government. He went into his native Korean language to explain what must be done.
If the international community wants to stop watching North Korea's provocations of nuclear weapons and missiles, they need to completely stop foreign currency going into North Korea. If they can't do that, North Korea will be there forever.
Defector accounts always need to be taken seriously and carefully. We spoke to several of our trusted sources here in Seoul, and they told us, in fact, that this guy was the real deal. Certainly the message is very clear.
The crazy fat kid across the pond is going to get himself in big trouble. News yesterday said that he's going to drop an H-bomb out in the middle of the Pacific. That doesn't sound like a good idea. I don't know why he would do that. What? I mean, does he think that we won't crush him? Apparently, the rest of the world has gotten used to Barack Obama being in the White House and thinks that we won't reciprocate. Now, of course, what's interesting is that flipping over to MSNBC here, I wonder where Kim Jong-un got the idea to say this about Donald Trump.
The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
Welcome back. President Trump followed up that threat to North Korea with an executive order today imposing stricter sanctions against the country, essentially banning anyone who does business with North Korea from doing business with the United States. More on that in just a moment. Trump made this announcement during a meeting with leaders of the countries most threatened by North Korea. That would be South Korea and Japan, two of our strongest allies. The conversation today shifted slightly away from military options, where it's been for weeks, with Trump leaving the door open at least to a diplomatic resolution.
Is dialogue still possible with North Korea? Is dialogue still possible?
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Also today, North Korean President Kim Jong-un issued a direct response to Trump's fiery address at the UN this week. Get comfortable for this one. In a statement to the Korean state news agency, he said all this, quote, "I am now thinking hard about what response he could have expected when he allowed such eccentric words to trip off his tongue. Whatever Trump might have expected, he will face results beyond his expectation. I will surely and definitely tame the mentally deranged U.S. dotard with fire." What beyond his expectation means, we cannot be sure, but the North Korean foreign minister, who's here in New York for the General Assembly, warned the South Korean press corps tonight this, quote, "It could be the most powerful detonation of an H-bomb in the Pacific." Could be, he said. With us here tonight, Andrea Mitchell, our chief foreign affairs correspondent, who's been covering this topic and this region for a long time. And Joe Cirincione, Cirincione. This is tough. It's always, I know it's late. Joe Cirincione, author of 3 relevant books for our conversation. Nuclear Nightmares, Securing the World Before It's Too Late. Bomb Scare, The History and Future of Nuclear Weapons, and Deadly Arsenals, Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Threats. He's also a veteran of the House Armed Services Committee staff and teaches at Georgetown University, where they have to get his name right at the completion of the term. For the record, dotard was the most searched for term of the night on Webster's, and it means old or senile, or in my case, unable to get Cirincione right. So, Andrea, we'll start with you. A day of bellicosity, a day of real sanctions. Where does this thing stand as of tonight?
Well, sort of good news and bad news, and I'm not going to even attempt Joe's last name, but just his book covers are enough to scare the heck out of you.
I know, and we've known him for years.
Yes. So let's talk first about perhaps the positive side. The president acknowledging that there is still room for dialogue or diplomacy, and this in answer to a reporter's question, and also successful sanction announcements. I mean, whether they are carried out, whether there is cheating, remains to be seen. But someone as smart as John McLaughlin, the former deputy CIA director, whom you know well, was saying to me earlier today that this is real, this will bite, because this is China's central bank agreeing to basically go along with the system that the Obama Treasury used to get Iran to the bargaining table, which was to use the banking, the international banking system known as the SWIFT system,
so it does
against
work.
the rogue state. It basically means, if I can paraphrase Steve Mnuchin at a briefing today, you can...
It is amazing how Kim Jong-un's statements sound like the news writers at MSNBC wrote them. At some point, he actually called Trump deranged. How long have we been saying there's this Trump derangement syndrome, this anti-Trump sentiment as pushed by the American media? Is the crazy fat kid getting his news from the fake news? It sounds like it.
Either decide, if you're a nation or a bank, whether you want to trade in dollars or deal with the U.S. or deal with Pyongyang's currency in Pyongyang. You can't do both. So if you want to deal in the world economy, which China does, which Russia presumably does, you can't also deal with Pyongyang. This would, if effectively monitored, actually cut off the flow of resources to North Korea and cripple eventually its very expensive military system. That said, there's been a lot of cheating before.
Joe, all this military talk back and forth reaches this kind of fever dream crescendo, and it's hard to walk back from that. So did you welcome the talk of diplomacy. Did you welcome these new
I hope they get to the
sanctions?
point. I really can't
It's a
take
thin
much more
ray
of
hope.
MSNBC.
The president's two-word statement when asked if it's still possible to talk to North Korea, he said, "Why not?" Remember, their strategy is maximum
let's go to
pressure
what Trump actually
and
said about North
engagement.
Korea.
Okay, you've got the maximum pressure, a very bellicose, almost.
Cornelius, are you going to play the bit, or am I on my own here? Cornelius.
Executive order.
There we go.
Signed,
Thank you, sir.
that significantly expands our authorities to target individuals, companies, financial institutions that finance and facilitate trade with North Korea. As I outlined at my address to the United Nations General Assembly, North Korea's nuclear weapons and missile development is a grave threat to peace and security in our world, and it is unacceptable that others financially support this criminal rogue regime. The brutal North Korean regime does not respect its own citizens or the sovereignty of other nations. Our new executive order will cut off sources of revenue that fund North Korea's efforts to develop the deadliest weapons known to humankind. The order enhances the Treasury Department's authorities to target any individual or entity that conducts significant trade in goods, services, or technology with North Korea. And I'm very proud to tell you that, as you may have just heard moments ago, China, their central bank, has told their other banks, that's a massive banking system, to immediately stop doing business with North Korea. This just happened. Just reported. In addition to everything else, what we will do is identify new industries, including textiles, fishing, information technology, and manufacturing, that the Treasury Department can target with strong sanctions. And Secretary Mnuchin is representing the Treasury Department, is here today, to prevent sanctions evasion. The order also includes measures designed to disrupt critical North Korean shipping and trade networks. For much too long, North Korea has been allowed to abuse the international financial system to facilitate funding for its nuclear weapons and missile programs. And trade the United States has had representatives working on this problem for over 25 years. They have done nothing. That's why we're in the problem that we're in today, in addition to, frankly, other countries not doing what they should have done. And the United States has representatives working on this problem for over 25 years. They've done nothing. Now, that's why the order will give the Treasury Department the discretion to sanction any foreign bank that knowingly conducts or facilitate significant transactions tied to trade with North Korea. And again, I want to just say and thank President Xi of China for the very bold move he made today. It was a somewhat unexpected move, and we appreciate it. New authority in this area applies to any activity that occurs following my signature on the executive order, which I've actually just signed. Foreign banks will face a clear choice: do business with the United States or facilitate trade with the lawless regime in North Korea, and they won't have so much trade. This new order provides us with powerful new tools, but I want to be clear, the order targets only one country, and that country is North Korea. The regime can no longer count on others to facilitate its trade and banking activities. Many countries are working with us to increase economic and diplomatic pressure on North Korea, but I continue to call on all those responsible nations to enforce and implement UN sanctions and impose their own measures like the ones I am announcing today. I must tell you that this is
what do you guys think of the hand cam?
Nuclearization of North Korea that we seek. Cannot have this as a world body any longer. In just a few minutes, Prime Minister Abiy, President Moon, and I are going to discuss
maybe I should call it the coffee
more
camp.
we can do working together. We've had a very, very close relationship. I think our nations have become closer because of this. I know it's going to be a great meeting. Our alliance with South Korea and Japan has never been stronger than it is today. We share a commitment to creating a world where strong and independent nations honor their people, respect their sovereignty, respect the sovereignty also of other nations, and promote peace. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
This is President Trump meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan.
Today I'm announcing a new executive order we just signed.
Oh, sorry, this is the same video.
That significantly expands our authorities.
What are the chances?
To target individuals, companies,
same video,
financial institutions.
Watch the hand cam.
That finance and facilitate
Watch
trade
the hand cam.
with North Korea.
Hold on.
As I outlined at my address to the United Nations General Assembly, North Korea's nuclear weapons and missile development is a grave threat to peace and security in our world, and it is unacceptable that others financially support this criminal rogue regime.
Sorry, I thought I had something prepared here. I clicked the wrong video. Cornelius, how can this be? How can this be? This is very unprofessional. Let's go to President Trump's weekly address.
The American family has always been the heart of our great nation. In homes across this country, families teach their children to work hard, to love each other, and to make the most of their talents in pursuit of their dreams. Yet for too long, American families have been hurt by Washington's policies that put the interests of other countries before the interests of our country. That's why in my administration, we are pursuing tax cuts and reform that create jobs in America for American workers, not foreign workers, but American workers. Here are my 4 principles for tax reform. First, we are going to make the tax code simple and fair so that families can spend more time with their children and less time wading through pages of paperwork. A staggering 94% of families use professional help to do their taxes, and that's not fair, it's not right. That's why under our plan, 95% of Americans will be able to file their tax return on a single page without keeping receipts, tracking paperwork, or filling out extra schedules. Second, we're going to cut taxes for the middle class so that hardworking Americans can finally save more for their future. We want to help families keep more of what they earn and to be able to afford the costs of raising a family. Our tax code should recognize that the most important investment we can make is in our children. Third, we are going to restore America's competitive edge by making our tax system more attractive for investment and for job creation. Our business tax rate is the highest in the world, pushing jobs to foreign countries. That's not what we want. That's not what I've been talking about all these years. I've been talking about the exact opposite. We need to bring down our tax rate so we can create jobs, wealth, and opportunity right here in the United States of America, so we can bring our jobs back and bring our businesses back. We want tax reform that puts America first. We want tax reform that makes America great again. Finally, we're going to bring back trillions of dollars in wealth parked overseas so that it can be invested in our country where it belongs. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reform our tax code and pave the way to unprecedented prosperity. By doing what we're doing, you will see results like you've never seen before. It will be the largest tax cut in our country's history. I'm asking members of both parties to come together, to put aside partisan differences, and to pass historic tax reform and tax cuts for the great citizens of our nation. That's how we will all succeed and thrive together as one team, one people, and one American family. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
I mean, I must say, I voted for Ted Cruz in the primary, as most of you know, and then I voted for Trump without reservation. Well, without reservation in regards to Hillary and the presidential election. I always have reservations about anyone in the White House, but I have been pleasantly surprised. So it seems that outside of being obstructed by everyone and their brother, President Trump is doing a fairly decent job. I mean, there's a lot of conservative things that I wish he would do, but he can't just do things. That's not the way the government works. You have to deal with the Senate. You have to deal with Congress. And they don't like to be pushed around. That entrenched deep state is the swamp is deeper than we thought, my friends. And as I've said before, President Trump can't just fire everybody. The government has to be run. You can't just fire all. There's only so many people qualified to do these jobs. You can't take a guy who's flipping burgers down at the McDonald's and make him Secretary of State. There's only a handful of people in the world that can do this.
So many happening.
So we can't. It's like Bannon said. It's going to take decades to drain the swamp, not months. But things are heating up. Things are heating up. As Hannity mentioned in the first bit, if we're honest about what's going on here, there is sufficient proof to lock up Lynch, Comey, Clinton, Wasserman Schultz, Imran Irwan. All these people need to go to jail. We're just waiting for someone with the testicular fortitude to make it happen.
Factory, it's all going down. First, yesterday, there was a judicial court hearing and approval of Bill H. Res. 446, which involves investigating certain documents relating to James Comey and his
audio
links
courtesy
to the
of
Clinton
Truth
campaign
Factory. Make
and
sure to follow
Clinton
Truth
herself.
Factory on
And there was
YouTube.
a separate amendment for an investigation on Loretta Lynch. And it feels so good. To some people, watching House committee hearings would be like watching paint dry, but not to me. This is what watching sports must be like for people who like sports. Here are my favorite highlights.
This amendment calls for a special counsel to investigate the real crimes, harmful lies, and the undermining of American security by the prior administration. Just because Hillary Clinton lost the last election doesn't mean we should forget or forgive conduct that is likely criminal. Voters want real criminals who have harmed our nation locked up. While on the subject of the improper conduct of Loretta Lynch, what in the world was she doing on a private jet at the Phoenix airport talking to Bill Clinton while she was supposed to be investigating his wife? This is somewhere on the continuum between unethical and illegal, and we need an investigation of Tarmac Gate.
People of them on the tarmac. It's hard to imagine they sat there for 38 minutes and discussed grandchildren.
Let's get to the bottom of the Clinton Foundation. Cash was flowing to the Clinton Foundation while the Uranium One deal was at work. That's real collusion that threatens America's security. I do suspect that there was Russia collusion in the 2016 election, but the only actual evidence of that collusion is tied to Fusion GPS, a company that was creating fake dossiers on then-candidate Trump and spreading them both before and after the election to undermine his legitimate presidency.
The trail leads, I believe, also to Barack Obama. We need to investigate all of this.
And this was the frickin' rebuttal.
It is clear to me that some people watch Fox News and actually believe what they see on Fox News. It's clear. And this is another episode of the unbelievable that will be shown on Fox News.
Okay, yeah. The government officials just said impassioned speeches about DNC corruptions, and the Dems' response on this whole hearing was about how they were trying to get on Hannity. This asshole right here is a literal vampire potbelly goblin hobbling around coming after you. And now for some Awan Brothers news. If you don't know who they are, I did a full...
Did she just say potbelly goblin? Oh.
Full rundown video on them the other day. Imran Awan was caught trying to flee back to Pakistan with his fortune that he made exploiting and blackmailing Democrats after wiring $300,000 that he claimed were for funeral arrangements. Who died? A king? Where I come from, you just shove someone in a fridge box and you put them in the ground and you hope they don't come back for a vengeance. Imran was detained at the airport and is now in police custody. DWS has finally fired him. Yeah, up until now, he was still on her payroll. And lucky for us, I have Confederate Cat on the scene right now. Hi, Confederate Cat. What do you think of Imran Awan taking his money and fleeing back to Pakistan?
If those fellers really did have millions of dollars US, why would they go to Pakistan? Who has millions of dollars and goes to Pakistan? That's the worst place to go. You go to the Bahamas. You go to Switzerland. Ain't nobody with money going to Pakistan. That's stupid. That's how you know it's not a real story.
Amen. Again, check out Truth Factory. I'm not gonna play their whole video. That's good stuff there. Make sure to subscribe to Truth Factory. It's good, man. I like it. Yeah, so I'm taking it easy on the videos. I don't have the time. When I do what I do on YouTube, it's going to be more like this, where I'm just chilling with you guys and watching the news. I don't have time to write and work. I have been in full beast mode for a couple of months here in regards to how much I'm doing. I'm writing 4 articles a week. Working 60 hours, just trying to keep my head above water here, and I don't have time to edit videos and make them professionally. I'm going to be going to the Center for Arizona Policy meeting with Ryan T. Anderson here on Tuesday night, of which I'm going to have to take time off work to do. Then again, I'm going to the Dinesh D'Souza Freedom Summit on Saturday the 30th. With press credentials in hand and hopefully a exclusive interview with Dinesh. As much as I would love to be able to put out quality videos like Truth Factory, writing for Barbed Wire, speaking for Father's Faith Ministry once a month, and doing a new part of Reverend Steve's radio show here, which I will be on once a week. Broadcasts around the Bible Belt in the Midwest, scattered. I apologize. I don't have the stations memorized, but several stations on the Wilkins Radio Network. I will be doing a 3-minute spot once a week with Reverend Steve there. So I'm pretty busy, and unfortunately, the production of videos is going to be what has to suffer. I just don't have the time to do my YouTube videos the way I feel like they should be done, the way I would like for them to be done. So like I said, it's going to be pretty much like this, me chilling at the computer with the hand cam too. I mean, the hand cam's kind of cool. That's a new feature. But we'll do a little bit. We'll do what's easy on YouTube. Trying to make it easy to check in with you guys. I mean, I was periscoping, or actually I was YouTube living to YouTube from my car and happened to have the radio on and got a copyright strike. I don't have the time. I barely have the time to stop and talk to you guys for 15 minutes in the course of my day without worrying about whether or not the radio is going to get my YouTube account banned. So I apologize for the lack of quality on YouTube. I'll do the best I can. But I'll still be putting videos up, but it can't be my focus. I don't have the time. Let's see what else we got here in the morning news. Anything breaking on the Tweety page? Let's see. Movie, nonsense. Pretty much not anything, except for Kim Jong-un calling President Trump a dotard, which we've already covered. Literally every liberal in America had to look up the word dotard because they didn't know what it meant. According to the video we played earlier, it really it was the most Googled word there for a little while. Let's search for it and see what we find on YouTube. Dotard. See if anybody enterprising. There we go. Ooh, this ought to be fun. Let's see if this is in English.
Now, the war of words between President Trump and Kim Jong-un has taken yet another step up, with the North Korean leader making a direct rebuke to Trump's speech at the UN General Assembly. In a statement on North Korean state media, reportedly released by Kim himself, he denounced the speech, calling it unprecedented, rude nonsense, and that it was causing worldwide concern. He describes President Trump's behavior as mentally deranged and pledged to take the highest level of hardline countermeasures. The statement is an unprecedented escalation in rhetoric, as Kim or his predecessors are not known to have made such a direct response in the first person before. In his UN address Tuesday, President Trump said the US could totally destroy North Korea if forced to defend itself or its allies, and that Kim was a rocket man on a suicide.
That we could destroy him, as if that is a claim that can't be backed up. As I've stated in the past few days, go to globalfirepower.com and check out the military might of the United States versus North Korea. It's not close. It's like the Cleveland Cavaliers playing a high school basketball team. We're first, they're 23rd. We could wipe North Korea off the map if we wanted to. And, I mean, to listen to liberals tell it, that's exactly what Trump wants to do. But that's not what he said.
Mission.
Deranged, he says. I'm surprised he didn't use unhinged. Unhinged, it would have been certain that if he had said unhinged, it would have been certain that he was getting his talking points from... Excuse me! Wow, see, that's what you get when I don't have time to prep a video and put everything together. You get me sneezing on camera and blowing everybody's eardrums out. I apologize for that. Woo!
Indications that China is ready to put the brakes on its financial institutions that deal with North Korea. This is the teeth that so many have said without which sanctions could never work. So if China follows through, and that's the if here, it is a significant diplomatic win for this administration. And it may show that the tough talk from the president and from Nikki Haley may have had an impact on the world body. This is earlier today.
Today I'm announcing a new executive order I just signed that significantly expands our authorities to target individuals, companies, financial institutions that finance and facilitate trade with North Korea. Our new executive order will cut off sources of revenue that fund North Korea's efforts to develop the deadliest weapons known to humankind. I want to be clear, the order targets only one country, and that country is North Korea.
What this does is take it a step further. This says anyone that deals with North Korea, any financial institution that deals with North Korea is going to be punished. We have said multiple times, the president said it, members of his team have said it, we don't want war. That's the last thing anyone wants. But at the same time, we're not going to run scared. If, for any reason, North Korea attacks the United States or our allies, the U.S. will respond, period.
So the leader of North Korea responding to this tonight, Kim Jong-un, in his inimitable way, declaring, I am now thinking hard about the response that he could have expected when he allowed such eccentric words to trip off his tongue. I will surely and definitely tame the mentally deranged U.S. dotard, he says, with fire. So that from Kim Jong-un tonight, former counterterrorism advisor to Vice President Cheney and Fox.
Here's the quote. Fat kid, quote, I am now thinking hard about what response he could have expected when he allowed such eccentric words to trip off his tongue. I will surely and definitely tame the mentally deranged U.S. dotard with fire. You keep using that word. I don't think you know what it means.
So that from Kim Jong-un tonight, former counterterrorism advisor to Vice President Cheney, and Fox News contributor Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz is with us this evening, and Fox News political analyst and co-host of The Five, Juan Williams. Big developments over the course of this whole week and really punctuated with this news about China tonight. Your thoughts?
But I'm fine with the tough rhetoric that we heard this week from the president and from Ambassador Haley. And we're seeing now that that was meant for the Chinese and not for the North Koreans. That's the only way I think we're going to get the Chinese to change their calculus, in the sense of they're fine with the status quo. It's America's problem. It's a Japanese problem. It's a South Korean problem. It's not their problem. Now with these sanctions and secondary sanctions on Chinese entities, we're making it their problem. And I think they finally believe that either the Chinese can handle it on their terms or we're going to handle it on our terms through military means.
I mean, President Trump, and at one point candidate Trump, has spoken out very strongly about China One throughout the course of all of this. You know, is it time for the naysayers to perhaps give him some props on how this is going, at least at this point? We don't know how what the outcome will be.
No. So what we do know is that they had 2 votes in the Security Council of the United Nations, unanimous votes, to impose sanctions on the North Koreans. China participated in both of those votes, Martha. Today, you have an increase in terms of the power of the sanctions, in terms of the banking system, but some of the banking sanctions had been in place earlier. The question is now, how are the Chinese viewing this? And from what I can pick up, the Chinese think, why is everyone pointing at us and blaming us? This is a bigger problem. Yeah. But from President Trump's perspective, he has said it really is the Chinese who have leverage at this moment. Right. And he is trying to force them to maximize that leverage. Does fire and fury, does Rocket Man serve that purpose? I'm not sure. I think a lot of people then say, well, wait a second, why is he being so militaristic? We're trying to work this out. The Russians even said that.
You know, the Chinese, though, can choke North Korea off tomorrow economically, if they want to, if they see it in their interest. And only the Chinese. And only the Chinese. So I do think, you know, it was right to direct the remarks at them. But the Chinese are very good at kind of having a PR play. They agree with UN sanctions, and then they don't enforce them. Yep. They kind of dial things up, and then as soon as we shift our attention away, which as Americans we're terrible about doing, then they kind of go back to the same old behavior. So
that's exactly right.
I have some optimism here, but we have to hold their feet to the fire.
I mean, I think you have to, you know, give credit where credit is due, that the ball has been moved farther this week on this measure than we have seen in years and years. Yeah. However, you think about the, you know, even the Paris Accord and the pollution agreements. Well, you do this now, we'll start that in 2026 or down the road. So I think it remains to be seen what the Chinese really mean by this agreement, and we haven't seen the letter of it. It's basically a verbal communication that there has been some agreement. I also noted today that the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, was very careful to not, you know, sort of lay it all on them. He's saying anyone who does trade with North Korea, this is a you know, universal proclamation here. Your thoughts on that?
Well, there are other entities. There's the Russians that do business. Yeah. There's some other folks in both the Indians and other folks in East Asia. So it should be anyone. And because, we are essentially, the other word that he used was sanctioning any entity. So that essentially means any entity that does business with North Korea can no longer do business with the United States and is kicked out of the financial system and can't use U.S. dollars. That is significant. What's also significant is before it was individual banks, individual entities. Now we're talking the entire Chinese financial system. But the proof is in the pudding of whether they follow through, and we have to stay on top of it.
Yeah. Do you think they will, Juan?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing is, even as we're having this discussion, we don't know exactly what Kim Jong-un wants.
Mark Steins, here, best-selling author, columnist, a little incredulous here. What do you think?
Well, James Clapper is a liar, and in many cases, he would have been prosecuted for perjury over some things he said in recent years. So I'm not minded to believe him on this. The fact is, Paul Manafort has been wiretapped by the United States government since 2014.
Yes, he has.
That's,
about that.
Yeah, that's almost 3 years. Now, he's never been, never mind convicted, he's never been charged with anything. So we have a situation in a supposedly free, self-governing, civilized society where the most powerful government in the world can wiretap you for 3 years and never have to bring a charge or find any crime that you've committed.
And I get different reads on what precipitated it, whether it was a Ukraine connection and all of that. But certainly, whether people knew who he was or not at the time, when he ascended to the role of campaign manager,
right?
You had to think that there were conversations, that hey, we have these wiretaps, and they could very well involve, the guy who's running for president of the United States.
That's right. I mean, for start, the FISA court thing is a joke. They just rub a stamp. All you need to do is be conversing with a foreigner, as you are doing right now, in fact. That would be grounds...
Or vice versa.
...for a FISA warrant against you.
And who would know about it?
Oh, well, and that's the point. Nobody would know about it, except what we have here is essentially the ruling party using the cover of national security rules to get the goods on its political opponents. I mean, if you go back to one of the meetings that they wiretapped, a prince from the United Arab Emirates came to town to meet with Obama, and Obama blew him off. So he thought he'd meet with the incoming government, so he went to Trump Tower. And mysteriously, the Obama administration decided it needed to eavesdrop on this meeting. There's no reason why this prince is a national security concern to the United States. They eavesdropped on the meeting to get the goods on Trump. That's the issue here. There's actually no Russians, I mean, I take the view that, Paul Manafort is doing business with a lot of sleazy oligarchs and so forth. Right. A lot of the guys you have on this show are.
They're my bread and butter.
Yeah, and there's sleazy oligarchs all over New York and London and everywhere in the West. But that's not the issue.
I understand. But, Mark, the one thing that would come to mind, though, is the intelligence officials, the Clappers, what have you, they would have to know about this. So when he, months back, was unequivocally denying that Donald Trump's phones were tapped or that Donald Trump ever appeared in a tape or something like that, I mean, he had to know.
Yeah.
Right? He had to know that there was certainly a distinct possibility.
He did
that
know.
This could have been going on. And
that's the point. Clapper always knew. They all always knew. And what I want to know is why isn't anybody trying to prove that they all always knew? Where's Jeff Sessions on this? Where's Trump? Why isn't Trump going after them? I mean, is he draining the swamp, or is he just changing what the swamp looks like? Is he redefining the swamp, or is he draining it? That's my concern at this point in time with the Trump administration. That is my concern. Are we just making a new swamp? Or are we draining the old one? Because, I mean, Trump wasn't on the inside of all of this in previous administrations, regardless of what everybody says. He had friends in politics, but he wasn't part of the swamp. He isn't part of the entrenched bureaucracy. So you tell me, are we draining the swamp, or are we just changing the snakes?
The president was sort of swept into it.
Absolutely. And that's the other problem here. Clapper has been lying with impunity to Congress and to the American people because he knows
he was treated like a saint in the media.
Exactly. And he knows he's never going to be called on it. And then you have someone like Paul Manafort. They pick his front door. They go in. They search his wife, who's in her negligee, in case she's got an AK-47 under there. That's disgusting. And they go through the house, not to get the goods on him, but just to find one of those process crimes, you know, a little thing they can
doing
mail forward.
If you think that this is all about, you know, putting pressure on him to do what? To serve other administration members, to circle in on Trump, what?
Absolutely. I think they're trying to turn him to get to Trump. And people think this is clever. And it's got a long history in America of I would say, the corruption of federal justice. He knows that if he's actually dragged into court, your friend Conrad Black likes to point out that in federal court, the United States government wins 97% of its cases, which is a victory rate Kim Jong-un's justice system would envy. It's not respectable. So they know that if Manafort knows if he's dragged into court,
I'm going to sign off and restart the stream here, guys. I can't seem to update my title, so I'm going to sign this one off. I'll be back.